All right, back again with another COVID edition of the podcast. So we're doing it remote today, which is funny because you and I met. I think the last time we hung out was weird. It was right before this happened. Like literally, we were. It was like a Friday, and by Monday everything was kind of in lockdown, right? Starting to be shut down. So we met to talk about doing this to get together for the show, and all hell's broken loose since. It's a totally different world, and now here we are sitting doing this over the internet. But before I even get into anything, I wanted to ask, I mean, one of the hats you wear is you're a police officer with Worcester Police Department. So you're, you're the first line out there. So what's different now with the people being home? And I mean, I know you're on SWAT too, so you have a sort of action-packed job. I got to assume that's changed a lot, probably for the good, but what's happening out there on the front lines? Because I'm in my house. I've been here for a month. I see nothing. The only place I go is the woods with my kids. So what's it like out there?
So on our end, we're in emergency operations. So we go to different calls than operations, where calls for service, which typical people call the police. They come home from work. They found the house broken into. There's pretty much no more of that. Mm-hmm. Because everyone's at home.
Right.
But the calls for service have gone down a little bit. There's, a lot less activity, a lot more police are trying not to be as proactive just to keep that social distancing away.
Yeah.
And a lot of the calls are more or less over the phone for report calls, or they'll, go to the house, have someone meet them outside to take the report, as opposed to going into the apartment.
Yeah.
And, possibly getting sick.
Right. Just drive by if you can. Make sure nothing's going to hell and keep going. So it's slower.
Yeah. It seems a lot slower now.
It seems like you hear all these reports of, foxes running down a bridge in New York and deer walking through the streets, and the skies are cleaner. And I mean, all that's good, but it's got to feel weird. Like if you're still out there in the city, and the city probably doesn't feel like itself, right? Because Worcester's always full of traffic and people everywhere, and it's
I know. I was driving around the city now, whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon, midday. There's nobody really out on the roads. Like you get through the city in minutes.
Yeah, it's nice and easy, like it was 100 years ago. It's weird too, because I mean, for the most part, nobody's out there. But sometimes when we go out, we'll go out and go for a hike or walk the dogs, and we'll pass by a skate park with 15 kids skating together. Yeah. It's like, what are you guys doing? You didn't get the memo? And what's with your parents? Why are you here? Why are you allowed to be here? It just lets me think, on the other side of the fence, what you guys must be dealing with, because you can't stop the stupid, and there's still people out there that just aren't going to pay attention, or, I don't know. It seems like a tough position to be in as a police officer or firefighter, or anyone that has to go to the place they're called, when sometimes those calls don't have to be made, but someone's making a dumb choice.
Yeah, exactly.
That's got to suck.
Happens often.
So let me back up here. My guest today is JD, John Daige. He's the founder of A Thin Blue Ride, which is a nonprofit that helps vets and first responders that are going through cancer treatments by supplying some money or funds, or we'll get into any of that down the road. But basically, to try and help them just concentrate on their fight and getting better, and with the healing, right? That's where it came. Yeah. That's where it ended up being now, where you raise funds to help them and their family maintain some kind of normalcy while they get through the fight. You're also an Army vet, did 2 tours in Iraq. We mentioned you're on the police department in Worcester on the SWAT team. You're a mountain biker. You're into jiu-jitsu. There's a whole lot of things that we're going to have to talk about. You're a rock climber. You just did Everest. I mean, we're going to have to talk about a lot of different shit here as we go through. But I do want to just kind of get out of the way for a few minutes and let you tell your story and start on how Thin Blue Ride came to be, basically with your own health and how that came to be. And you told me the story before, and I just want to kind of shut up and listen to it evolve, because it's amazing.
So 2013, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and I went to St. Vincent's in Worcester. It was outpatient surgery, kind of a shock. I thought I had a hernia because I was lifting weights. I figured it was that because I had a hernia before when I was coming back from Iraq in 2003. Mm-hmm. So I knew the pain was similar, and I just kind of pushed it off like, yeah, it's probably a hernia, but it really hurts. So I should probably get this checked out. Probably a week or two of like a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Especially wearing the gun belt at work. It seemed to make it a lot worse.
And how old are you at the time?
I was 29.
29. Okay.
So then ended up going to the ER. They did an ultrasound. Doctor came in and was like, yep, you have a growth. Come back next week. So I'm thinking to myself, like, wait, growth, you mean like tumor? He's like, yes. Yeah, you have most likely testicular cancer. So we'll have to remove that and then go from there.
Was it that, like, matter of fact?
Yeah, some doctors don't really have great bedside manner, but that's pretty much how it was. So
probably the single scariest moment of your life, and it's like, yeah, see you next week, buddy.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, we're gonna take your right testicle, and I'm like, well, can I get a fake one? They're like, yeah. That was on the plan. So you don't really go to the doctors thinking they're gonna cut something off you.
No.
So so a couple days later, I went for the outpatient surgery. Lasted like 3 hours or so. Went home, recovered. I waited. It was probably a few, like 2 months or so before I went back to work. Worked at the desk for a little bit because I had some, restrictions, obviously.
Yeah.
Post surgery, and then I opted to have a lymph node dissection, which was pretty invasive. I had some.
When you say opted, that was something they say, like, you could do this if you want to. Yeah. Like, what's the choice that you're given?
So I had a mixed germ cell non-seminoma tumor for the testicular cancer, and the lymph nodes were kind of near my kidneys. So some of the polyps were swelled up a certain amount of centimeters. And they said, well, it's in between. You could either have surgery, which is pretty invasive. You'll be out of work for like 6 months. Your diet will change.
Ouch.
Or you can keep on living, and this could grow to be a teratoma, which is basically like pretty disgusting. It could just be a growth that, there's kind of undetected. It could grow to be the size of a baseball or a football, inside your body, pushing organs around. So I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to have the invasive surgery.
Yeah.
So I had that. I was out of work. It was probably about 6 months before I got back. And then I was, quote unquote, cancer free. After that, I was doing a lot of running to get ready. It was around March, so I was getting ready for the SWAT tryouts in the spring. And, I've always been in the military. I've always been physically fit, playing football in high school. Like, I knew my body. Yeah. And I knew something was up. I was coughing up blood like maybe once or twice a day. And I just put that to like, it's dry out. Maybe I had a bloody nose last night when I was sleeping. I'm like, whatever, trying to not really think of the worst.
Yeah, trying to put it out of your mind.
Yeah. So then I ended up getting scans again. I had to, I went back to the doctors, told them I was coughing up blood. Then they did scans and they found 6 tumors in my chest and lungs. So I had, it was the mixed germ cell non-seminoma tumor. So it wasn't lung cancer. It was still the testicular cancer that spread, similar to Lance Armstrong's case where it spread throughout his body. So I had that. I was dropping weight, which I'll drop weight if I run a lot.
Yeah.
But during that time period, I took a week off and I still continued to drop weight. And that to me was a big red flag because, I usually eat pretty well, and unless my diet's going to drastically change and I'm working out a ton, I shouldn't be dropping weight.
Right.
So that was something that got me nervous a little bit. So they found the 6 tumors. This was in Worcester. I ended up getting a second opinion going to Boston to Dana-Farber. And that's where I met Dr. Chris Sweeney. And he's still my oncologist today. Awesome guy. I went to get a second opinion, and he actually wouldn't let me leave the hospital because I didn't know how bad it was. Because it was a reoccurrence of the original cancer. Yeah. They didn't consider it a stage. But he said it, if it was the initial findings of the cancer, it would have been stage 4.
Oh, wow. That's
so
scary.
Yeah. So I showed up for a second opinion, and then I ended up staying the night, and I started chemo. So I was hooked up to chemo 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then I would go home for 2 weeks. Then I would go back, hooked up for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I did that for 5 months.
So when you go home, you're just kind of healing until the next session of the treatment? Because I mean, it takes a lot out of you, right? It's hard.
I think the biggest thing is the mental aspect of it. Like, I ended up, when I had one of my IVs in, it was, I think it didn't get in the vein properly. And well, it didn't, it wasn't noticeable. Like they do the IVs, they pump you up with anti-nausea stuff. They give you IV fluids. It's not just like straight chemo. It's, 8 to 10 different bags of stuff with like 2 or 3 bags of chemo mixed in between. So I thought, chemo was going to hurt the whole time, where I ended up, there was something with the IV was messed up. So I ended up getting a minor scar or burn on my arm, because I'm like, oh, I thought it was supposed to do that. They're like, no, it shouldn't kill a thing. But, so, and then of course you're laying down for 5 days in the hospital. You can't really get up and move around. So I was actually lucky. I spoke with somebody in Dana-Farber, and they mentioned I could bring a stationary bicycle in the room.
Oh, nice.
So the hospital had those, and I wasn't into biking at all. And I was just like, I want to keep busy, keep your mind busy, keep your legs moving a little bit. So I had the stationary bike brought in the room, and I'd go on that here and there. I would be out Sunday night. Monday morning would feel like, one of your worst hangovers. Tuesday would feel, from the chemo.
Yeah.
Tuesday would feel similar. I'd pretty much watch Netflix all day and hang out. Wednesday, Thursday, I'd usually feel better, but your body still feels off. Like I always had a metallic taste in my mouth, and I had the hiccups and heartburn.
Yeah, you're still healing. You're not even back to normal.
Yeah. And then I would do, I'd still go to the gym. I'd still like wakeboard a little bit. Obviously I'd still take it easy, but
that's got to help mentally though, right? To go do things, even if you can only do half or a quarter of what you'd normally do. Am I crazy? Or like when you're in the hospital for the 5 days, is part of the hardest thing just being alone in your head while you're getting treatment? Like, it seems like boredom's the wrong word, but like fear and just letting your thoughts run wild. And like, how do you occupy that time when you're stuck there?
Yeah. I was pretty lucky to have a lot of visitors, because on the police department, guys work overnights, guys work different shifts. My family and friends outside of work would show up, in the afternoons and in the evenings. And then, or, during the day they'd show up because they worked an overnight.
Yeah.
And then, my parents would show up, and family would show up during the day. And like my friends had a blast. They got me Nerf guns, brought in an Xbox. Like, we had as much fun as we could. And I was lucky to have, with the chemo treatments I had to have my own room. So we kind of had it on lockdown, which was pretty good. Like, we didn't have to worry about bothering anybody.
That's nice. That's a good way to look at it too, is having a sort of a lucky break in this unlucky time.
Yeah. And I mean, I still felt decent through the chemo. It keeps you get chemo brain. Like, I remember laying in bed one night, and I'm like, oh, I should probably change my light bulbs to energy efficient. And then I'm thinking about everything, and I'm like, I got up, I went to Home Depot, I spent $300 on light bulbs for my house, and it sucks. Like, you just can't explain it, but it's, your mind gets going. It's tough to sleep at night. Some days are better than others, but every 2 weeks I had off would be a little different. Typically Monday, Tuesdays were the worst, but I would still, like I showed you the home gym that I built that when I was going through chemo, because I ended up building CrossFit Worcester's gym, like towards the end of my treatments. So I was out of work, and I ended up, like, I grew up doing metal fabrication. So I was like, I need to keep busy. And, cutting and welding steel wasn't too bad. So,
it's a good way to keep busy. I've used some of that gear that you made.
So, I mean, throughout that, and that pushed me through from March to, I think around July was my last treatment. Then so the tumor shrunk in my chest and lungs. Then I had scar tissue that was left over from that. So I had to have a right lung resection. Mm-hmm. So they pretty much like it looks like a shark bite on my back kind of. It's they cut my lat, had to break a rib, took the top and bottom portion of my lungs out, and then
what? Glue your rib back in place and put you back together.
It was funny. I was looking at the X-ray pictures, and I was looking at the small part of my lung. There's a few pictures I have on the Thin Blue Ride's Instagram of it, and I was looking at it like a few weeks later, and that surgery was like hard recovery.
Yeah, I bet it was. I mean, geez.
So I was looking at the picture, and I'm looking at my ribs, and usually the ribs line up, and I look at it, and one is stacked on the other one, and I'm like, wait a minute, did they break my rib?
Wow.
I mean, is that why it hurt so bad? So I called the surgeon, and I'm like, did you guys break my rib? They go, yeah, we had to break your rib to take the lung out. And I'm like, initially my fear throughout the whole thing was, we might have to take your whole lung.
Yeah.
And knowing I had to have a left lung surgery, I'm like, well, I'm going to have I might not have a right lung, and I still need surgery on my left lung. So I would have, not even half a lung to work with.
Yeah. That's scary. Especially too, where you want to go back to living in your life. You've been an active guy. You're into sports, all kinds of different sports too. So,
yeah.
And that sounds silly to some people, but it means a lot to people that are active, to be able to continue to do the things that drive you. So I imagine that was part of one of the scariest parts was not being able to go back to just living, right?
Yeah. So my thing was, the doctor he dealt with people with COPD, and it was more like elderly patients with lung issues. Mm-hmm. And I'm a, 30-year-old guy. I'm like, hey, what's my 2 mile going to be if you take my lung out? Yeah. He's like, I work with 85-year-olds. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to, and doctors are never going to say anything anyways, because they don't want to step on their toes.
No.
But, so the doctor was great. He actually reconstructed a blood vessel to save my lung. So the surgery was supposed to last about 3 or 4 hours. It ended up being closer to 6 to 7 hours.
Wow.
And he came in post-surgery. He was all excited, and I was still kind of out of it, obviously.
Yeah.
And he's, I was FaceTiming another doctor, and I was talking to so-and-so, and we reconstructed this blood vessel to save your lung. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember him asking, like, how do you feel? I'm like, well, my arm hurts because I was laying on my side the whole time. And then the drug started to wear off. So, and that lung surgery went great. 2 weeks later, I ended up going back for a post-surgery checkup. Mm-hmm. And that's when scans were, the blood work was a little off. And that blood work was always a marker, my tumor markers. So basically you get a blood draw, and there's 3 markers that they check. And for me, every time when it was in my lungs, and ahead of that, my alpha-fetoproteins were always elevated every time I had something going on with me. So my alpha-fetoproteins were elevated, and I got home from the post-surgery checkup. They're like, all right, you're good. Mm-hmm. They called and they go, yeah, your proteins are up, your CAT scans came back, and you have a brain tumor.
Oh, God.
So I'm like, okay, so what do we do?
How before we go into this next phase, how are you feeling at that point? Like before you find out about the brain tumor, how are you? Is there time in between each of these treatments that you're starting to feel like yourself again? Is your lung okay? How much?
That was too close to the surgery, so it was still like in a lot of pain from laying down to getting up.
Okay, so it's close. There's not a lot of time passing by.
No, but it was it was enough time after chemo where I felt good. And the good thing about surgery is you show up, they knock you out, you wake up, and it's over. Mm-hmm. or you don't wake up and it doesn't matter anyway. It's like you just got to accept it. Like, what's the other option is to live with this tumor, or
which means not living. I mean, you can't just live with the tumor.
So, for me, I kept getting bad news on bad news, and it's just like, well, there was always a light at the end of the tunnel as far as, all right, you have tumors in your lungs. Okay, what's the plan? We're going to have chemo, shrink your tumors, and take have surgery after that. Mm-hmm. And then get healed up. Okay, take the portion of the lung out. Mm-hmm. That gets better. Okay, what's next? Oh, well, you get a brain tumor. So the plan was I had brain surgery, then I had brain radiation for several weeks, which was the easiest. They pretty much, you lay down in your stomach, they make a imprint of your face. They pretty much bolt your head to the table.
Whoa.
For like 45 minutes, and I would just usually pass out.
So you can't move your head?
Yeah, you can't move. And it was localized just to make sure they get all the cells.
Yeah. What if you're a person that freaks out from that kind of stuff? So they sedate you?
They might. I mean, my experience with radiation was great because it wasn't affected. I know somebody who had it on the throat and they couldn't taste food. Or if you get radiation near the stomach, you might have, GI issues or whatever. But, the brain, there's not much up there. So, so then I had the brain surgery, the brain radiation. Then I was, back to getting the left lung resection. So I had the top 10% of my left lung removed. And that was a scope surgery, so it wasn't as painful. And in between then, I think after the radiation, I went back to work for a couple of weeks. I saw the city doctor and I asked him, can I go back to work? And he's kind of like, well, if you want to, you can. Mm-hmm. I'm like, all right, I might as well go back. And because being out for so long, you just, you kind of miss it. You want to
probably feel disconnected too, right?
Yeah. And, you don't want to miss, policing is always, it's kind of like a fluid profession. Stuff's always changing. Mm-hmm. Plus you want to keep busy, you always get to keep your head busy. So I went back to work, then went for the lung resection. Then, maybe a month or two went by, went back for scans, and scans came back for a second brain tumor.
Oh, come on.
Which was it was still the same mixed germ cell non-seminoma tumor, still the testicular cancer that spread. So with both brain tumors, they were actually kind of resting on the brain. They weren't embedded as bad. So they cut the skin back, pretty much Dremel the skull out, pull that out.
You got the lucky type of brain tumor?
Yeah.
If you can say that.
So the back left and the back right part of the brain. And then, the surgery, the recovery for that was great because there's no muscle on your brain. Like when I had the lymph node dissection, they had to cut me from my waist to my sternum, and they pretty much disembowel you and then perform the surgery, resection, put everything back in. And that recovery was so painful because of the muscles. Same with the lungs. But with the brain, it's, skin and bone. Yeah. So it wasn't too bad. And of course, because it's brain surgery, they want you monitored for 5 days after that. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Family watching. The surgery was Friday. I was home on Sunday, but then it was monitor and still taking the Neulasta shots and all that stuff. And yeah, so I had, within a 3-year time period, I had the testicular cancer, the testicular surgery, lymph node dissection surgery, 2 rounds of chemo, 2 rounds. I had chemo a second time after the brain surgery, but as outpatient. So I had 2 rounds of chemo, 2 rounds of radiation, 2 brain surgeries, 2 lung resections, and two other surgeries. So I had 10 procedures in 3 years.
It's how, I mean, obviously it can't all be positive, but how do you stay positive going through? I mean, that's like a a shit deal, right? So
Yeah.
like 2.5 years in, how are you? What's your mental state like? What do you, and how do you cope?
I mean, the good thing was being around family and friends, obviously, because, you'd go to the movies, you'd go out on the boat, you'd go, you keep busy.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't imagine dealing with it. Let's say if a couple of years ago I decided to move somewhere and that was all I had, that probably would have been a lot more difficult. I think just from my mindset, kind of started early, like 20 years old, being in Iraq. Mm-hmm. We did transportation missions and gun truck missions, but it was always, somebody always had it worse than you did. Like,
yeah,
we had a Humvee with no doors, driving all over the country, which was pretty cool. But then you hear that there's guys in Baghdad doing like hand-to-hand combat, and like, all right, well, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So it puts stuff in perspective on what to worry about. There's things you can control, things you can't control.
Sure.
Everything on mine there was always a light at the end of the tunnel, as far as, okay, you have testicular cancer, this is what we're going to do. All right, you have a brain tumor, this is what we're going to do. Like, there was no terminal diagnosis where they're like, yeah, you have cancer and
that's it.
And keep you going for as long as possible.
Yeah.
So that's one of the mindsets. Like, my thing is always somebody else has it worse than you do.
That says a lot about you, I think. And it says a lot about your mindset, the ability to just think, well, it could be worse, or, we'll just follow the plan and get through it. And to do it for 3 years, multiple times, where it's kind of like getting kicked off that proverbial horse, and you just got to get back on and keep going. And having the mental fortitude to do that, I don't think it's all that common. I think it's pretty amazing. And that probably speaks to how you did 2 deployments at war, and how you're a member of a SWAT team, and you do a bunch of difficult things like rock climbing, and you did all of that sort of stuff beforehand too, or at least, the general line of interest with the sports and the things. Do you think some of that mentality was helpful? The competitive mindset, the keep going mindset? Yeah,
absolutely. I think one of the better things is kind of 1540 is another nonprofit, and they focus a lot on knowing your body and being your own advocate. And I think it helped, growing up, playing sports, getting hurt, you know what it's like, when you do jiu-jitsu and you tweak your elbow a little bit, like, it's going to get better. You got to let it heal up. But with that's kind of like when I had the pain in my groin, and I'm like, oh, it's probably a hernia. Mm-hmm. It's like, your body, it's not getting better.
Right.
So their thing is, mark a calendar in your phone 2 weeks ahead of time. And if it doesn't get better, note what your symptoms are, because there's been a lot of people that have cancer symptoms, and it's, more than just a lump. Mm-hmm. Or, I had a mild cold kind of before I had my diagnosis. So my blood cell count was probably way off. Mm-hmm. One of my buddies actually did 2 deployments to Iraq with him. He had liver cancer, which he passed away, but his shoulder hurt. Mm. So it's like, the body, your body's always telling you something. Mm-hmm. And I think it helps being active all the time and knowing your body, like, all right, well, this isn't just a pulled muscle, or this isn't, I didn't just tweak something. And then it gets you into getting treatment, because the best treatment is getting treatment early as opposed to later. Mm-hmm.
Sooner the better, right? And then there's no sides to that rule. It's always better to go early.
I mean, if I was in Iraq when I was coughing up blood, I probably wouldn't have said anything, and you know what I mean? Like, it's I probably would have pushed on, like, yeah, whatever, it'll get better.
Yeah. Yeah, people have it worse, right? So why am I going to complain? So over the 3 years, do you Do you meet a lot of other people going through it? Do you meet new friends? Is there a community that sort of comes around to help each other? I know that you've met people with other organizations, and there's been sort of activities and groups that you've become a part of or got to know people through. How did all that come to be? Because that kind of leads into where we're going with the Thin Blue Ride, right?
Yeah. So when I was going through it, I remember Dana-Farber's pretty good about putting out. I forget what they call it. It's like young cancer. It's, people going through cancer at a young age, and they kind of have forums or meetups with those people. And usually it's at Dana-Farber in Boston or Brigham and Women's. And I think during the time, it seems harder when you're going through all of that. Like, you feel like crap.
Yeah.
You don't really want to do too much as far as, drive to Boston and meet up with a bunch of people that are sick and you're feeling like crap type thing.
Yeah.
So I noticed it after, because I was just getting more involved with what's out there. And I remember seeing something on Facebook with First Descents, which is another nonprofit that Brad Luden started. He's like a pro kayaker. Sorry, my dog's barking.
Don't worry about it. I got a wolf hound sitting over by the door. She'll eventually bark too.
So First Descents is a nonprofit that gets people kayaking, whitewater rafting, ice climbing, surfing, and basically they take people, I think it's under the age of 40, but people who are diagnosed or in remission, and it's about 15 people from the U.S. I'll take them outside. All right. So they take people, about 15 to 20 people, and they have several staff members. They have 2 personal chefs. They have a medic, lead staff, and someone who, like, a photographer. And they have donors support this. So for my trip, we ended up going ice climbing in Ouray, Colorado. And it was basically, it's kind of like group therapy, but it's not, it's not really forced upon. It's kind of like being a veteran where, you go to a party, someone's like, oh, this guy's a vet. And then you start talking to him. You have that common, you have that thing in common.
Definitely.
That you really can't explain and other people don't get it. So with cancer, it's kind of like the same thing. We met people from all over the country, and right off the bat, we're talking like we've known each other for years. Like, oh, I had testicular cancer. And then, the girls are talking about breast cancer diagnosis, and other guys are talking about other surgeries. So we're all just like, oh, my surgery was this. And we're in a hot springs in Colorado. Like, everyone's showing their scars, and people are around us. Like, just like, what are these guys talking to? These guys are messed up.
Yeah. But it's like finally being in a group of people where everyone knows what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think that was a huge part of, kind of like the healing process of it. Knowing that other people have gone through it.
What seems really cool about the First Ascent too is, maybe I'm wrong, but doing kayaking and climbing and all this stuff that you got to do, most people don't do that stuff, right? It's an extreme. They're all extreme sports, or they're high risk or fun. There's stuff that are awesome, but I'm assuming most of the group, they weren't avid kayakers or ice climbers beforehand. So it's kind of like you fought cancer. And this is what it seems like to me from the outside, which I think is really cool. It seems like you fight cancer, and then there's this group that helps you realize, life's not over. It's not just healing from here on in. You had cancer. You're here today because you're in remission, or you fought that cancer, and now you're going to get back to life, or even better, kickstarting it by doing some new stuff, taking on these new challenges. And that, like, I can see where something like that would be helpful to me, where it would be, if you, after you go through it, to just sort of kick the doors open instead of crawling slowly back into things would be really helpful. It would be awesome. And is that what it was like? They weren't all extreme athletes, right?
No, I mean, we'd have, they call it like campfire. Everybody just, like, it's so laid back. So, everyone, you'd go out all day, you'd pack your lunch, you'd ice climb. And for me, I picked ice climbing because it was something I wasn't like, I don't know. I didn't really see myself doing any ice climbing. So I'm like, I think I'll try it with this. I like it because I've been rock climbing, I've been surfing, I've been whitewater rafting. So I'm like, yeah, I'll try something different.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it wasn't, out of my realm of doing something crazy. It was just, I wanted to try something different. Plus the aspect of meeting everybody and, everyone getting their stories out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people during that, end of the day, everyone would be so surprised that, I didn't think I'd make it ice climbing up this ridge, and I made it. And it was because of so-and-so and so-and-so that helped me out today. Mm-hmm. And, so it actually made people a lot more tight knit. Like from my thoughts going into it,
yep.
I thought it was going to be more of an individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where into the first day, where this girl who was going through treatment, she was an oncologist and she had trouble walking. So we're literally like carrying her down trails to get down the ravine so she could ice climb.
Wow.
And it would probably take, maybe like 100-foot pitch or whatever. And she climbs up it, snail's pace, refuse to quit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We're like, hey, you want to take a break? Because like I get exhausted. I just muscle up and get right back down. And she's literally up there for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, she's working.
And she's just like, nope, I'll make it. And then, makes it to the top. And I'm like, God damn. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome to see.
Like she's got a hard time walking, but she's going to climb an ice wall.
Well, she's not quitting. Obviously exactly. It's hard, but she's still going. I love seeing that in people, the people who go further than you're supposed to be able to.
She was going through, like I was in remission probably at least 2 years, I think. Yeah, 2 or 3 years. And a lot of people going through that were still going through treatment. Mm-hmm. Like one of my roommates on that trip, like I could smell like the chemo.
Wow. Like
it made me kind of nauseous because I remember that smell.
Yeah.
Sometimes like the hand soap in the hospital, that reminds me of, chemo. So I get like sick to my stomach. I'm like, that's awful. But no, it was a great, eye-opening group and everyone still stays in touch. And another group I found out about through, I think it was through Instagram, the Send It Foundation, which is another nonprofit. Those guys do a lot of skiing. They do mountain biking. And
any sport where you'd say send it?
Yeah, pretty much. So anyways, the brother ended up having cancer. Mm-hmm. And he would send it, quote unquote, send it. Like you could send it from jumping off a cliff, or his send it was like, I'm going to get out of bed today.
Yep.
Or I'm going to go on a bike ride today, or, do something. So he ended up passing away mid-30s, and the sisters ended up putting together the nonprofit, and now they get groups of people to go. We went skiing out in Squaw Valley this year. Mm-hmm. And it was, it was awesome. It was kind of like the same thing. Like everyone just shoots the shit and goes through like, it's like when, someone's going through cancer and people are like, hey, how do you feel? It's, it's like coming back from Iraq and people being like, hey, how was Iraq? Like, well, it sucked.
Yeah, the palm trees were nice.
But again, people don't know what to say.
Yeah, how do you know what to say? I mean, it's one of those social things where I get from the perspective from the person that was in Iraq or going through cancer, like it's an annoying question, but at the same time, like at least that person cares enough to inquire, because I don't know what to say. I don't know what I would be supposed to say.
I find myself kind of like, because I've spoken with a lot of people in the past 5-6 years, I've fielded a lot of phone calls or emails or, hey, my aunt's sick, hey, my dad's sick. The first thing I do is tell them, go to Boston because that's the best treatment. Mm-hmm. And because I've had so many surgeries, a lot of people have kind of asked like, hey, what should I do? Or what's this like? What's this like? So, on top of having Thin Blue Ride, the nonprofit, I've either reached out to people or left it out there if somebody has questions to get a hold of me, because it might help them.
Yeah.
With the either going through it, or if their, spouse is going through it. That's probably one of the harder things as well.
Yeah, I imagine it is.
To be the loved one of someone going through it, there's nothing you can do really except be there.
Right.
And it's probably one of the most stressful things.
That's terrifying as well, because you're sort of powerless. All you can do is be there, which doesn't feel very helpful.
Yeah.
But like you said, though, in your case, the people being there is what was helpful. That's what makes you go through. But as the person on the other side, wouldn't you feel helpless? I mean, it would be terrible. Yeah,
because it's something you have no control over.
No, nobody does. There's just some people that can try and help. Yeah, but nobody has control. It's there's some luck and there's some science.
Yeah.
So then, let's talk a little bit about the Thin Blue Ride and how that comes to be. So where did the idea from that come from?
So I was at one of my visits with Dr. Sweeney, and he mentioned the Pan Mass Challenge, which is...
Does he ride it?
Yeah, he rides it.
Nice.
So he told me, it's a 200-mile bike ride from Springfield all the way to Provincetown. 2 days, you pretty much ride 20 some odd miles, get a rest stop, and usually they have like a DJ or live music. They have, peanut butter and fluff sandwiches, power bars, energy bars, Gatorade, all that stuff. So it's like you ride for an hour, take a quick break, get on the bike, keep riding, take a break. So, everyone goes at their own pace, and it's a blast. There's, 5,000 or 6,000 riders, and the people that are along the route, usually it's close to the same route every year. Mm-hmm. And it's been going on for, over 30 years. So people are out there in their robes in the morning. People set up, I forget what the spot is. It's this one spot, kind of the halfway point. It's this one back road in the middle of nowhere. They have, I think last year they had like a reggae band. They had a high school band.
Wow.
Balloons over the road. You're stopping, taking pictures. Like, it is so much fun. So Dr. Sweeney told me about the ride, and that's when I got my road bike and I started cycling, because I wanted, my lungs to get better. Mm-hmm. And, just for healing anyways. So I started road biking and fell in love with it. So I was like, yeah, I'll sign up for, a 200-mile bike ride.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
And you have to raise, at the time I signed up, it was over 5 years ago, it was like $4,500 a rider.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. So he rides for Team Shamit, and they have a huge team. They're one of the big sponsors. But as much as I love Dr. Sweeney, I'm like, I kind of want to do my own thing. Mm-hmm. Like, my 1 year cancer-free was actually the Pan Mass weekend. So,
that's timely, huh?
Yeah. So, I thought of a team name. I signed up myself. And then one of my bosses, I talked to Mike. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do the ride. He goes, all right, I think I'll do 1 day. I'm like, all right, well, I'm doing 2 days. And then I talked to my buddy Eric, who didn't even have a bike. Kid I grew up with, he was in the Marines. We were over in Iraq at the same time. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hey, I'm going to ride. He's like, all right, I'm going to ride too. I'm like, all right, you need to get a bike. So then we came up with a team, and I came up with the name Thin Blue Ride, because, Thin Blue Line for cops and ride because on bikes. Mm-hmm. So we ended up getting a team together. Then we had another police officer, Ange, sign up with us. So, we raised, I think around $32,000 to $35,000.
Wow. Wow. And I was, when you said 4,500, I was like, that's a lot of money to raise.
Yeah, we were nervous at first, but what I didn't know is, while I was going through all my cancer bullshit, was how crazy my story was. I thought it was kind of normal. And then when I wrote to Pan Mass saying, why are you riding? And I write this 3-page long, I had testicular cancer and blah, blah, blah. And I had 2 brain surgeries, 2 lung surgeries. Then they had I think it was WBZ. I came to the house and they did like a 3-minute video where Lisa Hughes, on the Boston channel, posted that. And they had that on the news. Then they had that at the opening ceremony for the Pan Mass Challenge.
Wow.
So being a first-year rider and then watching yourself like on the big screen of all these cancer survivors and everything, it was pretty amazing to pretty good first year to ride.
I bet. Does the team evolve every year? Is it one set team that you have? Does different people come on and off the team?
We've had a few injuries. So like, some people ride. It's pretty much the same. My buddy, Joe Quinn, now he's on our committee. So we're going to ride this year, me and Joe. And then there might be a few others that didn't get to ride 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. We skipped last year because now the minimum to raise was, over, I think it was 5,000 a person.
Wow.
And, we don't get corporate sponsors that just, match what you make. Like everything we make is off of a general donation or selling hats and shirts and whatnot. So, we really have to push.
It's a lot of
to
money.
Make that money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
So after 1 year we had a lot of riders. We had to raise $40,000, and that was because of so many riders. Mm-hmm. And after that year, we make T-shirts every spring. Usually we sell, I don't know, maybe 500 of them, and give or take, along with other stuff. And we have a golf tournament. Usually we do pretty well, but then after giving $40,000 to Dana-Farber for cancer research, it doesn't leave Thin Blue Ride any money to help families in need.
Right.
So actually after 3 years of doing the Pan Mass of Team Thin Blue Ride, I wanted to help families directly. So that's when we got our 501c3 status. And then we turned Thin Blue Ride into thinblueride.org, where we get our tax ID. And now we could directly give families money going through treatments.
Yeah. So that's now you can kind of turn around and focus directly on the cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so Thin Blue Ride we do the Pan Mass, we donate our money to Dana-Farber for cancer research. And it actually goes to Dr. Chris Sweeney's cancer research directly for testicular cancer. And he's dedicated. Him and his wife are doctors. He travels the world going to seminars and learning what he can about testicular cancer and what works, what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So all the money we raise goes to that. And, after the Pan Mass, that's what we have, and we get to disperse to families. So we've probably helped close to 10 families now, and we're continuing to help some more now on the West Coast.
That's got to feel good. But hold on 1 second. We're going to talk. I think, are you hearing it skip too and start to freeze?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just going to pause for a second. Let's just stop the meeting and log back into it. I don't want the actual story of the work that you're doing to be affected by pausing. So let's just restart.
There?
Yes, there he is. Sorry about that. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I don't want your whole interview, but then we start talking about the actual charity to be choppy or difficult.
Yeah, no worries.
We're getting throttled or something. So, all right, you were talking about how you started to shift the focus from Dana-Farber or the Pan Mass being the big thing that you did to focus on helping families.
Yeah, so, I mean, we love the fact that we help Dana-Farber because they're the institution that, kind of saved my life.
Yeah. And lots of lives, right?
And yeah, exactly. We're in debt to them. But I also noticed what happened when I was sick is my friends held a benefit for me at Mechanics Hall. So I had high school friends. I remember the football team came. My buddies from Iraq came. Yeah.
You really do.
And, they had a huge benefit, and being out of work, brain surgeries, lung surgeries, chemo for 5 days, like those copays were, up to like $15,000, $20,000.
Well, dude, I mean, we're not talking about having like a sprained ankle, sitting on the bench. We're talking about major surgeries.
it would be the CT scans, the MRIs, the blood work, the copays on that. And I still have good insurance. So that's what kind of, that helped me out with getting rid of whatever pain, ended up paying off credit cards and copays and stuff like that, which help, obviously.
Yeah.
So my thing is, well, I like giving to the big organization, but at the same time, I'd rather help someone directly the way, they help me directly. Mm-hmm. So that's why Thin Blue Ride, that's why we don't really have a specific set, like we don't have a set number on like, hey, you have cancer, here's X amount of money.
Right.
But it depends on, sometimes people will let us know it's a cop from another town. And if we have some money, then we'll be like, all right, here's a check for, $2,000. Mm-hmm. And then we'll sell t-shirts with their name on it or something specific. That way they can get it in their department. And then we'll, give them the proceeds to that, mm-hmm. So the family ends up with, $10,000.
Yeah.
And they could, go to Disney, pay their mortgage, do whatever the heck they want with it. But it's just you're out of work.
Yeah. It makes the burden better or less.
Yeah. Cancer sucks.
Yeah. So it's something that feels good among, something that sucks.
Someone could throw you a couple bucks and, people don't know how to help. And if you buy a shirt for $25 and the family gets a percentage of that, yep. They get all of that. Besides, none of us take any money from the nonprofit as far as being full-time or not, or part-time or whatever.
Yeah, you all work.
But we all work. So this is all volunteer time. And I'd like to see it, long-term goals I'd love to do it full-time and travel and tell my story, which would, help people either get, I don't want to consider it motivational speaking. I've done a lot of speaking engagements.
Yep.
But that's me just telling my story.
No, but call it what it is, because hearing that story could help someone say that was in a real bad place. Well, all right, I just got to stick it through. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and not everybody has that mental mindset to see the finish line. You know what I mean? I think that can really be helpful to talk to somebody who did it. It's not theoretical. It's not, just sit tight, man, and know what you're going through. And that person's thinking, you don't know what I'm going through. You do. You do know what they're going through. You went through it. You probably went through something that might even be worse, and you can say, look, I'm out here. I just climbed Everest. You can do this. Yeah. So,
it's always, I'll tell my story 1,000 times if it's going to help somebody out. So that's why, if I were to do it full time, it would be like, I'd have to get, we don't have any corporate sponsors. We have a lot of local businesses that are kind of our backbone that, donate things to us. Fritz's Bike Shop has been there since the beginning, and he helps us out with,
who's that?
Any equipment we need. Fritz's Bicycle Shop.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't quite hear it. They've been helping you ever since the beginning for the.
Yeah. Aaron's been great down there. But, a lot of people it's for the nonprofit world. It's, it only goes as far as you want to push it, whereas I could sit in my house all day, do nothing. Or sometimes I'll just write a random email to I ran into a guy with a Streamlight jacket on, and I'm like, hey, do you work for Streamlight? He's like, yep. I'm like, hey, I use your stuff at work. It's great. Do you guys donate to nonprofits? And Streamlight's been awesome. They're a somewhat small company out of New York, but those guys sent me, probably $1,000 worth of lights that we donated in our golf tournament. Or I just did one the other day on Instagram where it was just, like and repost, and one of the guys wanted to work, and we did a gun raffle that raised a lot of money for our buddy Sully, who's going through some treatments right now.
I remember seeing that one.
$22,000 for a gun raffle.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a hell of a gun. Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? If we could put in a little bit of work to give that family some money, that stuff's pretty easy.
It's huge. But like you were saying, you have to ask, right? People aren't going to come banging down your door, take my money. They have to know that you're there to do something with it, that it's even a possibility. I think that's an important thing to talk about. I talked to another person who runs a different type of nonprofit last week too. And just talking, people everywhere right now, especially not cancer related, but COVID related, people are wondering how they can help. There's people making masks. There's people doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do that. Not everybody has a sewing machine. Not everybody can do the maybe little things they see that people are doing to help out. But there's other ways to help out. There's ways to help out with your time. There's ways to help out with your money. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money. The donations don't have to be huge. Little donations become big when lots of people get involved. So I think messages like yours and hers, they're important to get out there so people know they can still be helppful while they're quarantined in their house or, getting outside of this quarantine. Just in general, you can be helpful to the greater causes, those bigger causes. And you don't have to change your whole life to be helpful. You just have to commit to be helpful, whatever level you can be. But I think that's important to say. It sounds like a no-brainer, but it's important for people to hear. Oh, so my $5 really might have an impact? Yes. Yeah. Way more than the $5 doesn't if you don't give it to anybody. It's important.
And I've seen a lot too. Like I do a lot before, PanMass has you do your own fundraising page. Same with like Tap Out Cancer. Mm-hmm. And like I did the Tap Out Cancer event which was awesome. I raised, I forget how much money, maybe $1,000 or so. Mm-hmm. But
it's a great event though. It's popular. Yeah. It's for a good cause.
And it was like people that you wouldn't expect. You share it on Facebook, then all of a sudden you get a $50 donation from some kid you went to high school, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Like I wouldn't expect that, but that's huge.
Yeah. And then you start to, put the pieces together that you really have to get out there and ask because, holy shit, there's people I haven't talked to in 20 years that are willing to give $50 and be helpful. But they wouldn't have if I didn't make this post, if I didn't create this charity, if I wasn't doing this work, it wouldn't be happening. It's got to feel pretty good too, to start to put those pieces together and feel like you can make a difference.
Yeah. And I think with that being said too, with all the small businesses, I think Worcester, got a lot of ties here, and with all the small businesses, the restaurants, the bars, mm-hmm. The bars that are like, hey, have an event at our place and we'll have, we'll give free food and you guys could charge at the door for tickets or whatever, then have a raffle and we'll give you some stuff that we get from the liquor companies, and all that ends up working out where, you put in a little bit of effort and then, on a Tuesday night, the nonprofit makes like $6,000 at a bar.
Yeah.
Like, all right, sweet. Now we could use that. We could, make 500 shirts and we can end up, making like $15,000 off of it.
Yeah. Not only that though, but all the people that showed up are going to tell their friends about it. They're going to show up to the next one because they saw the impact or had fun, at the get together. And I think that's the important thing too, is keeping it going and keeping people aware. That's probably the hardest part too, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely lost some steam. Like right now, we're getting ready for a golf tournament at the end of June, but we can't go around asking for, a whole donation. Hey, you got $250 for our flag.
That may or may not happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could have it. We wouldn't make money. And we like to have things that people like. The quality t-shirts that we make they're not just a regular cotton shirt. They're a shirt that every year in the police department, guys are like, hey, you guys making those shirts again? Mm-hmm. Or I'll go to the gym at the station and there'll be like 3 different years of shirts that we made.
That's cool.
And I'm like, oh, sweet.
Yeah, that is.
So, guys like the stuff. So we like to have a good product. Last year for the gift for the golf tournament, everybody got the Arctic like tumblers, like laser engraved with the Thin Blue Ride flag on it. Nice. And like, yeah, it's like a $30 tumbler. So we'd rather have something where people like, if we do a golf tournament every year, we want to do that one.
Yeah, yeah. And that little knickknack is someone's going to keep that, right? And it's memorabilia, and it's a reminder. It's a reminder that they can be involved and they can continue to help. It goes a long way.
Yeah. So yeah, we like having that. We just don't want to sell stuff to sell stuff. Like I get so many 5K shirts that I don't wear in my closet because they're just a cheap shirt and you get it because it's like 5K and you're like, all right. And I'm like,
and it's 100%. It's that thick old school like cotton. It's a box. It doesn't fit at all. It's I have like not boxes but bins full of those like in my attic because for whatever reason I end up wanting to keep them because I did the race or did the event or whatever. But I'm never ever gonna wear it. No one's gonna wear it. It's just. Yeah, I shouldn't even keep it, but I do. I keep it just as the reminder. But but I have a drawer with a bunch of shirts from things that I have done that I do wear that are because they're nice shirts. Yeah. It's that simple. Yeah. If it's a nice shirt, you'll wear it, and there's a big difference. So, what's
like we would love to get a bike race going, and now I've been doing a lot more mountain biking than road biking.
Yeah.
So, I know numbers. I want to reach out to those guys because I'd like to have, either a endurance race or some kind of race because we're a cycling nonprofit. I'm like, we need to have a cycling, like the golf tournament's great. We make, a good amount of money on a Monday for the year that's going to support families and the Pan Mass if we do it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, we're cycling based. We need to do it. But the logistics behind it, I've never done anything like that. So we're trying to figure out what we want to do, where we want to do it. Like I'd love to have it in Worcester because of all the businesses we could have something at, whatever spot.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, it's nice to get out of Worcester and get a little more real estate so you can have an event like kids race, raffles, live music.
Make it a day. Have music. Have beers and hot dogs at the end. So we started talking about that fateful Friday we got together. I love the idea. Like I would love because I used to be a roadie too, but I just don't ride on the road at all anymore. I don't even have a bike anymore. I only have mountain bikes because I just if I'm gonna hit a tree, it's my fault, and then so be it. But I just the cars were just. Once I was a dad, it was just too freaky to put my life in everybody's hands, especially with the roads here in Mass. But I don't. Anyway, not going against roadies. I'm just not one anymore. But with Nemba, I know the dude who runs it recently stepped down, but I know some guys that I can connect you with if you want. That are out in this area, like in the Hopkinton and Framingham and Worcester area. That could definitely be helpful in the meantime with setting up events. Good dudes, and they're some of the people who help organize the biggest rides, and they're all just super nice people that love mountain biking and being involved. That I was just going to ask you what's next. So the mountain biking, I think that would be awesome because you could make your own event. So instead of getting a quota that you have to earn to give for someone else's race, which nothing wrong with that. I mean, Pan Mass is awesome, but you could have your own and focus on the good that you want to do and what you can do with your organization. And I'm in. Sign me up. You get the race going. Yeah. I'm in. I think that sounds fun.
I feel like you get a lot more mountain bikers than you would road bikers. You get people that road bike and you get people that don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like there's no real in between. You get guys that are out there all the time.
Yep.
Like we did a ride a few years ago just for fun. We went from Worcester to Westerly, Rhode Island. I'm like, let's do a ride to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
We had like 10 people sign up and we wanted to keep it small to see how it was, but it's just hard logistically. Like, how are you going to, is it going to be a big loop? Are you going to end up in the same place? How are people going to get back? Like there's so many factors, but, and I always I feel like I could, but if more than I could chew, like I'd rather have a big race that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Pan Mass, I see that and I'm like, oh yeah, let's do something like that. But I'm like, well, these guys have been doing it for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Like, and
there's some logistics behind that.
Maybe do like a 20-mile ride or whatever. But, there's a lot more guys that mountain bike. Like the other day, there was probably 7 of us riding the other day in Millbury and Rayburn.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's just easier. You don't have to worry about all the traffic stuff.
Nope.
All the details.
Don't have to stop any roads. Don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Just need a couple ambulances.
I forget what race it was. It was down towards the Cape, down 495 last year. Me and my buddy signed up last minute. And I called the director and I was like, hey, I run a nonprofit. Could I bring my stuff? He's like, yep, come on down. He's like, come to any race you want. So, guys are super open to have us there, which is great.
It is.
Now, we need to start getting there. Like we just ended up buying a new trailer, which we definitely needed. We had a 1984, Comet trailer I bought from a buddy where the doors fly open and it's super small.
Nice.
We invested some money in a nice aluminum trailer. It's like 7x16.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get to, put cabinets in it. So it's got a flip up concession side. So now we could pull up to an event, sell t-shirts out of the back.
Yep.
Or if we do a road ride, it's kind of like a breakdown vehicle, put some bikes in it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I definitely have big goals for where I want to see, I'd like to see an annual ride. Personally, I'd like to go across the U.S. on my road bike.
Oh, no kidding.
Within the next couple of years.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. You need some time for that one.
On that is crazy too, as far as, do you want to be self-supported and as a nonprofit, I'd like to be, you want to raise money off of it.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to try and have events along the way?
Right. Or you could have like state by state rides where people gather from just the state that they're in and they ride with you to the next line. That would be kind of interesting. With mountain biking though, you can also, not to take away from that, but to add to what you were saying, mountain biking, you can do, or at least it seems like you could potentially do different stuff. Like with mountain biking, it doesn't have to be a ride, like a start and finish race. You could go to Highland or Killington, or you could go somewhere that's got some downhill, and you could have an event where you've got a day, and you've got either one lift and like one section of the mountain or whatever is just dedicated to your Thin Blue Ride event. And I'm sure, I mean, I can't speak for any of those guys that run those resorts, but I mean, why not? And then you got people that are just, instead of it being one place to the next, you spend 8 or 10 hours going up and down the mountain with different people, meeting different people on the lift, and just having, so the social time goes the whole time. And it's fun as hell. I'm sure you've done some downhill. It's awesome.
Yeah,
And that way you solve a bike problem too, where people can rent them.
Yeah, that's true
if
too.
They don't have them. I'm not saying to do it instead of a race. I'm just saying do it again, do another event, and do it at a downhill place. That'd be fun. Yeah,
I've noticed too, like, when I try and come up with different stuff, I try to come up with stuff that I like to do, but again, I like to do everything. So
I know the feeling.
There's been a few times I've tried to raise money for, some of the other nonprofits, and you're the only one at the gym, or there's one other person that shows up, and you're like, but that's part of it. Like, I was part of the one of the staff on Team Red, White, and Blue, which is a veteran organization where it's meant to get veterans out of the house, go rock climbing, do a 5K, do whatever. But it's meant to, their titles, Enriching the Lives of Americans Veterans Through Physical and Social Interaction. So basically, you're on active duty for 2 years and you come home and you're back here in Worcester and you're like, oh, this sucks. Nobody's telling me to go on a run. And, mentally you're not prepared for it. And then you see, Team RWB, like, hey, we do a 5K down at Lake Park every Tuesday or whatever. So it's meant to get guys out of the house. But they were like, there's going to be times when you show up and you're the only one there. Yeah. And that's right. Just don't stop going, because that one guy that
do
shows
it anyway.
Up,
yeah.
That one guy that shows up could be the guy that really needed that day to get out and meet somebody.
Definitely. Or exactly. The one guy that shows up, he might need that more than, a group of 10 people showing up. That's huge. And then it's just, there's so much that you could do that is fun, but like you said, you kind of have to dial it in and have a purpose, right? Because if you try to spread it too wide, I'm the same as you. I have so many hobbies and things I love to do, and I'm not a master of any of them, but I like them all. How do you got to pick, if you're going to run some successful events, you really got to focus in on it and get it done.
I mean, and the thing is that we did a 5K. We've had, we did it 2 years in a row, and it was right around 120 runners, and it was a lot of work, but because you have to pay the companies to come in, and it's just finding that we should focus on cycling based, because we're a cycling based nonprofit. Right. And I'd like to have that one race where guys, because we get that law enforcement end where a lot of cops do the golf tournament, but they're not cyclists. So we have that demographic of, we got guys that buy our shirts because they got the Thin Blue Line flag on it. Yep. And then we got the Thin Blue Ride logo with like the bike cog. And I'd like to reach out to non-cops who are cyclists. So it's tough to get that middle ground of like, all right, like our audience basically of how we're going to get to them and make it successful.
It does also give you an ability to focus too, though, right? So instead of trying to talk to people in jiu-jitsu and diving and climbing, and at least you can focus on talking to people who pedal, right? So whether or not they're cops or whatever their background is, but you got that one thing in common, pedaling, and you can kind of focus your message. At least it gives you that common ground, that thing to focus on. And if you can get it to be where it's roadies and mountain bikers, then you've got the world gets a whole lot bigger.
Yeah, I feel like the mountain bike world is, a lot more guys ride, especially over the past couple of years. I've met a lot of guys that just do a lot more on the trails than they do on the road, or they, like what you did, park the road bike and get on the mountain bike.
Yep. I've found the same. I've also found it's a very different crowd where it's not just the same people. Where when I was a road rider, it's not a super social thing. I mean, you can make friends and there's groups, and I'm not at all saying roadies aren't friendly, but it's not a social sport, really. It's a sport you do alone, maybe with two other people, and mountain biking is social. Even if you're alone, you're going to end up running across another one. You're going to talk to them. You're probably going to have a beer. I mean, it's a very, very, mountain biking's very social.
We run into that in Rayburn. There'll be, 4 or 5 of us, and then we'll bump into a guy and he'll be like, hey, mind if I, jump in with you guys?
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
It's not like you're talking, you're out of breath. And usually I put on my heart rate monitor to see how high I could get because I'm dogging it in the back. But
I know that feeling too. And I mean, a lot of the people I ride with, I didn't know before I was mountain biking. I met them by mountain biking because they're friends. There's a lot of friendly people, I think, that are out mountain biking. Competitive's not the right word, but it's just a looser scene than road riding.
Yeah. Well, again, too, like usually you have to bring your bike somewhere, whereas like road bikes, guys will walk out their door, ride, to do their loop and come home. Whereas, you go to Rayburn or you go to Sutton or you go to Vietnam or whatever.
Yep.
And then you get the parking lot of the guys, just shooting the shit, getting the bikes ready. And sometimes some of the guys know the same people or whatever.
Yep.
We went up to Highland and then we ran into the same kid at Rayburn.
Yeah.
A couple months later.
Yep. And you see, you get there to go for a ride. You meet with your buddies. You see 3 other guys who just came out of the woods and they're drinking a beer behind their car, and they tell you how the trails were or what to watch out for. It's I don't know. I really like the scene. I enjoy it. So, we're over an hour already, getting near an hour and 20. So I want to be respectful of your time, even though we're all in lockdown, we're not going anywhere. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? I'm not in any rush, but do you have anything else? We've touched on most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about with you. Anything else? I missed jiu-jitsu. Do you?
Yeah, I know. I just started going back. I'm like, now I can't wait to go back just because I can't go. I'm like, we need to. I'm looking on Facebook for mats and stuff, but they're selling pretty quick.
It's killing me. And Seneca's doing Zoom classes like this for the kids, and my kids both go. Yeah, so 3 days a week I have to sit there and let my kids choke me on the living room floor, and they're doing class, and I can't choke anybody, and I can't roll with anybody, and it's driving me out of my mind.
Yeah, that's great.
But soon, right? Soon we'll all be back to it. We'll all be back to it. Is there anything else you want to bring up? Where do people find the Thin Blue Ride? How do people help?
So we have thinblueride.org, which is our site. We're working on making the site a little more up to date.
I can help with that.
All right.
That's perfect. What we do. To reach out. Yeah, I can help with that.
Awesome. So we have thinblueride.org. The emails go to my phone. I run the Facebook, the Thin Blue Ride Facebook, and Thin Blue Ride on Instagram. And usually, we'll message people. Like I found out a kid was sick in California. He's a cop and a Marine vet. He's got brain cancer. So I sent out a bunch of Thin Blue Line hats, and we're going to give the money to the family. And we also have a donation that I put on my Facebook for him. And, people in Mass, we had to get over $500 donated to a kid that they don't know who's on the West Coast.
That's awesome.
He's got 3 daughters. He's married. So yeah, we're trying to help him out. And it's nice that we could just, hit post on Facebook and get a couple $100, $1,000 on top of what we're going to donate from the nonprofit to him. And, one of the guys that we're working with out there, he's like, it's so weird that, thank you so much for trying to help. And I'm like, no, dude, we're just, I've been through it. So it's easy enough to, a couple people want to throw a few bucks in, and selling hats, they're getting a product for their money. The money's going to a good place. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
And, they're super grateful, but people helped me when I was down. So might as well keep it going.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, why not do something that's a universal good, right? It only does good. It helps you. You feel good doing it. You feel like you're giving back. Someone's getting help. Yeah. Someone else gets to make hats and T-shirts, and they have a job. I mean, nobody doesn't win through the deal. Why not pursue it? It sounds great to me. Plus, you get to go to golf tournaments and rides.
Yeah, I remember just seeing people that I don't know wearing our T-shirts, and I'm like, oh, it's awesome.
That is awesome.
And usually I'll either introduce myself or they don't know me, but they know someone. The family's with a cop or someone, or they bought it at an event. We were selling T-shirts in DC for Police Week. We want to get our name out there as much as we can. Mm-hmm. That way people could be like, oh, so-and-so, someone's sick. They might need someone to talk to, mm-hmm. or someone's sick, like we need some help type thing. Mm-hmm. And we could help out as much as we can. There was a trooper that we helped out. He actually went to Boston. They gave him about a month to live. Ooh. And I didn't speak with him directly. I spoke with other troopers, mm-hmm. and we made T-shirts with his name on them. We ended up raising about $14,000 for the family.
That's and
just gave that to the family. Yeah. And he ended up passing right about that timeline. And we're just like, if we sell some T-shirts or make T-shirts and you guys sell them to the family, and mm-hmm. it's got his name on it, it's got our logo, so people are like, oh, these guys help people out, just to spread the word, let everyone know.
Well, plus, down the road, his family has those shirts, the hats, they have the money. That was obviously a big help in the short term, but they've got those, they've got the proof of a community coming together to be helpful in the worst time. And I think that's really meaningful. They've got that shirt that shirt doesn't mean 14,000 to them. It means strangers helping. It means, people doing good. And that, I think that positivity, I don't want to sound corny, but that stuff goes places. That's infectious. It's, when someone does good for you, you want to do good for somebody else, and so on and so forth. And it's good. Yeah. It's like smiling at people or scowling at people. You're going to have a better day if you just smile at people. Don't go through the day like an asshole.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, or you want to call it there? I was psyched to have this conversation. Covered. I've been looking forward to it since we had that coffee.
Nice.
Next time we'll do it over beer.
Yeah, definitely.
In person when we can actually talk.
Yeah. We've still been riding a lot during the week on the mountain bikes.
Yeah. I haven't been out. I've been out hiking. I haven't been out on the mountain bike during this, except just in my neighbor's got a big backyard, so I took the kids over there and we ride bikes in the backyard. My two boys, they're 8 and 10. So the 10-year-old's pretty damn good now. He's got a fat tire bike and he loves it. The 8-year-old, he just turned 8 end of last summer. So we did Kingdom Trails for the first time last year, a family trip, and it was awesome. The 10-year-old, he was 9 at the time, of course, riding black diamonds on his fat tire. It was so cool to watch, because it's like a year before that, he could ride a bike like a kid, and he was perfectly good at riding his bike around a park or on a rail trail. But here he was a year later, and he legit rode a couple black diamonds at Kingdom Trails and was out of his mind, excited and happy. It was so cool to watch. So are you coming across a lot of people on the trails?
There's still a lot of people hiking, but like we did Sutton the other day. I'm not sure what stretch we did, but it was super gnarly. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
the super steep sections, rocks, jagged, but we, drop the post and send it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
We got a blast.
Are people keeping distance from each other when they're out there? Is it how are they treating the whole?
We're on the bike trail, so I haven't really seen too many people like walking. Like I'll see people parked and then they'll walk in or ride the bikes in. I haven't seen too many people in Sutton. There's still a lot of people riding like Rayburn, but usually like different times. There's a few guys that we've seen in the woods either running or biking, but that's about it.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Yeah, I feel like people are, I don't know, they're keeping a distance, but we haven't really. Nobody's coming up to us and then be like, oh, let me back off 10 feet. But
no kidding, because I do see that when we go out hiking, we'll if you come across people on the trail, people will step off the trail like 10 feet and wait for the other to pass. And
well, actually, I noticed that me and my girlfriend went the rail trail with her kids, and then people are walking with the masks on, and it's funny because it's like some people don't want to make eye contact. Some people,
it's weird. Like if I don't acknowledge you, I can't get your germs.
Black plague.
It is weird because some people will look at you and say hello, like how are you? They'll wave and they'll smile and it almost feels like they're on purpose making the connection, which is nice. But some people, it's like they just ghost you. They're just not going to look right at you. It's weird out there.
It is definitely.
All right, I'm going to hit the button on this one, man. Thanks a lot. This was a ton of fun. I'm glad we got the chance to talk. Awesome. Hang tight for a second.